5672, which would produce the slowest rotor RPM? A. A vertical descent with power. B. A vertical descent without power. C. Pushing over after a steep climb. The correct answer is C. When a helicopter pushes over after a steep climb, the blades are no longer moving through the air as quickly. This is because the helicopter is no longer generating as much lift. As a result, the rotor RPM will slow down. In contrast, a vertical descent with power or without power will both cause the rotor RPM to increase. This is because the blades are still moving through the air at a relatively high speed, even though they are not generating as much lift. 5673. If the RPM is low and the manifold pressure is high, what initial corrective action should be taken? A. Increase the throttle. B. Lower the collective pitch. C. Raise the collective pitch. The correct answer is B. When the RPM is low and the manifold pressure is high, it means that the engine is producing more power than the rotor is using. This can happen for a number of reasons, such as the helicopter is in a high-density altitude environment. The helicopter is carrying a heavy load. The helicopter is hovering in a strong wind. In any of these cases, lowering the collective pitch will reduce the amount of power that the engine is producing and allow the rotor to spin up to the desired RPM. Increasing the throttle will not help to increase the rotor RPM in this situation. In fact, it may actually make the problem worse by increasing the amount of power that the engine is producing without a corresponding increase in the amount of lift that the rotor is generating. Raising the collective pitch will also not help to increase the rotor RPM in this situation. In fact, it may actually make the problem worse by increasing the drag on the rotor blades and making it more difficult for them to spin up. Therefore, the initial corrective action that should be taken when the RPM is low and the manifold pressure is high is to lower the collective pitch. If this does not resolve the problem, then other steps may need to be taken, such as reducing the helicopter's weight or moving to a lower density altitude environment. 5674. During climbing flight, the manifold pressure is low and the RPM is high. What initial corrective action should be taken? A. Increase the throttle. B. Decrease the throttle. C. Raise the collective pitch. The correct answer is C. When the collective pitch is raised, it causes an increase in manifold pressure and increased drag on the rotor, which in turn leads to a decrease in RPM. 5675. During level flight, if the manifold pressure is high and the RPM is low, what initial corrective action should be made? A. Decrease the throttle. B. Increase the throttle. C. Lower the collective pitch. The correct answer is C. By lowering the collective pitch, you can raise the RPM by lowering the manifold pressure, which also lowers rotor drag. 5676. When operating a helicopter in conditions favorable for carburetor icing, the carburetor heat should be A. Adjusted to keep the carburetor air temperature gauge indicating in the green arc at all times. B. Off for takeoffs, adjusted to keep the carburetor air temperature gauge indicating in the green arc at all other times. C. Off during takeoffs, approaches, and landings, adjusted to keep the carburetor air temperature gauge indicating in the green arc at all other times. The correct answer is A. When using a carburetor temperature gauge, the heat setting on the carburetor should be changed to maintain the green band of temperature.